Retro.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall, voice of Hera and Rook Cast, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. Their behavior is continually unexpected.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we are wrapping up this last week of July with a look at some recent Star Wars news, especially the stuff that was coming out of San Diego Comic-Con. But before we get into the latest, Jay, where can everyone find us on social media?
We can be found, as always, on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right, the dish of the line, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield is down, and we are now broadcasting to the galaxy. This is the week's Star Wars news. And I say that, but I actually want to start with some things that are adjacent to Star Wars, because some of this came out of Comic-Con, some of it did not, but things that we've been talking about recently. The first one, and Jay, this is no surprise, you'll get the same notes I am, Ryan Gosling and Shawn Levy were announced at San Diego Comic-Con as making the new Ghost Rider movie that's going to be coming out in 2028. What has that got to do with Star Wars? Well, nothing. But other than the fact that Ryan Gosling and Shawn Levy are starring and directing in Starfighter next year. And of course, Star Wars and Marvel are sister companies under the Disney umbrella. I don't know that you can really take anything away from that this is going to tell us anything about what we should expect from the Star Wars movie. I am choosing to take it as that it was a positive experience, and the Disney umbrella said, oh, they did such a great job with Starfighter from what we've seen. Let's give them a Marvel movie. Overly optimistic, perhaps, but what do you think?
Well, okay, I have to admit, is Ghost Rider the one that Nick Cage was in?
Yes.
Is that okay? I've never seen those movies. Is there more than one? Okay,
There's
so
two.
I'm not alone. But no, I think that that's really cool because obviously, like you said, there's got to be some confidence there with that partnership that, oh, this chemistry kind of worked. So let's give them something else to work on, because obviously Disney doesn't just throw people together just for the sake of throwing them together. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely had to be some chemistry there. Speaking of Nicolas Cage, they just announced him yesterday. He's coming to Fan Expo Dallas here in September. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, they've been teasing this like major announcement for a guest appearance. They're calling it epic, and everyone's like, "Yeah, this is going to be a letdown." And then it was taking a while to get the contract negotiations, and so they kept pushing it off, and then finally, in the middle of last week, they're like, "Okay, we expect to have this done sometime early next week." And then at the end of the week, they said, "Yep, we'll have the announcement on Tuesday." And so it was Nicolas Cage. Neither here nor there, because he even has less to do with Star Wars than Ryan Gosling and Shawn Levy. But
Marvel,
anyway.
Spider Noir, which I have not finished yet, so I need to do that.
That's a good show. Yeah,
I gotta make time to do that.
Definitely. Okay, the other thing is that a few weeks ago we were talking about how Starfighter is coming out in this new Infinity Vision thing that Disney has put together, and we were discussing exactly what that is. And we basically determined that it was not a new technology. It's more of a certification that theaters can get if they reach a certain level of projection, sound, and the likes, basically the screen size and whatever. And I can now confirm that is the case. And how do I know? Because the tickets for Avengers Doomsday went on sale last week. And I got an email from the Alamo Drafthouse, which is where I go see all my movies. This is bizarre. This movie's in December and they're already selling tickets for it, but saying that you can purchase your tickets for the Infinity Vision screenings at Alamo Drafthouse. And it is the big show. It's Theater 6 in the Richardson, Texas, Alamo Drafthouse. Gigantic screen, laser projection, the Dolby, the surround sound, all that bit. When I went to see the Odyssey, the sound about knocked me out of my chair. It's that level. And it is certified for Infinity Vision. So again, All to say is it's not a new technology. It's just a certification that you can get so that if you're looking for among the best, it's not IMAX, but if you're looking for amongst the best presentations of one of these Disney films, whether it's Marvel or Star Wars or animated, whatever, you're going to get it from that certification.
Gosh, I hope there's some theaters around me that are going to have the Infinity Vision because I'm very curious. We've got some IMAX theaters, but they're very far from me. I mean, it's the closest IMAX I think to me is hour and 20 minutes away. But I mean, I would definitely check this out if I could, for sure. And I think Doomsday would be a really fun way to experience it. Definitely.
No kidding. And you know what surprised me when I bought my tickets? I like to go to that theater. It's they're having they're going to have it on multiple screens there at the Alamo Draft House. But again, they're only doing the pre-sale for the Infinity Vision certified theater, and that theater has an aisle that goes across that runs the same length as the rows, right in the middle, and everything that's on the front side of that aisle, it's like the seats that are too close to the screen. I don't like being like right up by the screen. And then everything that's behind that is the ones where it's kind of that sweet spot. Almost all the tickets were sold out for Thursday and Friday night screenings in December already for that movie. And to the extent that I couldn't get 4 tickets together. So my family of 4 could not have gone and sat in a theater. So we got tickets for that Saturday night. And they're good. They're in that back half of the theater, which is what I want, but they're not like the prime, like middle of the row, halfway up type seats or whatever. But it's fine. I suspect this will be a movie, if it's everything I think it's going to be, that I'll probably go see more than once. So I'll have opportunities to see it from different perspectives. But that trailer came out. This is not a Marvel podcast, but hey, it's adjacent, like I said. Yeah, and I was blown away by the trailer, so I'm excited. Can't wait to see it.
Cool. I expect a full report, of course.
Well, I mean, it's December. I suspect you're going to go see it too. So anyway.
Yeah, I probably will.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into some more Star Wars specific news. Up first, coming out of, well, I'm not sure if this was actually a San Diego Comic-Con announcement or basically was announced about the same time, but the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art is going to be screening some of the episodes of Star Wars Detours. I can already hear a lot of our listeners going, what in the world is Star Wars Detours? And you and I know this, Jay. This is the series that was created before the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney, where George Lucas had Seth Green, I can't remember who his partner was, basically create this humorous cartoon, Homer Simpson-esque type of a presentation of Star Wars. They called it Detours. And then it promptly got shelved when Disney bought Lucasfilm, and it's never seen the light of day. But some of these episodes are finally going to be presented there at Lucas's museum, which is interesting. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, interesting to say the least. So for years, it was almost like a mythological status because, as you said, it was teased. We got, I can't remember, was it Celebration when was it? 2015 was when it was teased. I remember seeing this teased
before that
Celebration. So it was, because the acquisition of Disney. So I had to be 2012 maybe. Anyway, so but now it becomes almost like museum art. So it's oddly satisfying that it's being embraced in that way by Lucasfilm as Star Wars history. It sort of hurdled the whole thing of being brought to the masses. So, but part of me is a little sad because I don't know if I'll ever actually get to go to the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. I'd like to, and I'd like to think that I can. So, how do you feel about that? Do you think it's like the perfect compromise, or do you wish that it would get to Disney Plus? I don't know if it ever will because it's going into the museum. So it's now an archive.
Yeah, the thing is that I can't miss something that I don't really know anything about it. And it's
fair.
I remember when I first heard about this, 17, 18 years ago, whenever it originally came up, it was like, oh, okay, so George Lucas is doing that. And if George Lucas is doing it, then fine. It's something probably worthwhile seeing and stuff like that. But it's basically a Star Wars-induced spoof of Star Wars.
Mhm.
And okay, and I've always thought of it this way. It's like, which would I rather have which would I rather have? That or more episodes of the Clone Wars? That or Rebels? That or The Mandalorian? That or Maul Shadowlord? And the answer has always been the other thing. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I'm not certain that I guess this is all a long way of me saying is that cool. I'm glad it's going to be there. I'm glad that this is a project that people put work into is finally going to see the light of day in some regard. I don't think all the episodes are going to be shown from the way they've described this. They're saying it's curated there. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I don't know that you're going to like be able to sit down in this museum and watch all these episodes, nor would you maybe really want to spend all day
Mhm.
just sitting in a room at a museum watching episodes of this thing.
Sure.
To be frank, yeah, it's something that I would sit down and watch if I went to the museum, and I'm hoping to when we're in LA for Celebration next year. But I'm not going to the museum for that. I'm going
Mhm.
to the museum for the life-size Naboo Starfighter. I'm going there for the other collected comic book panels that he's got from pages from different things. It's not a Star Wars museum. It's the Museum of Narrative Art. It's going to have a lot of things from a lot of the sources, and that sounds really cool. And this is a bonus, but it's not a reason for me to go to the museum. I guess that's how I feel about it.
That is totally fair, and I'm with you too. I mean, that there's
Mhm,
definitely so many other things to see.
mhm.
But like you, I'm glad that it is getting to see the light of day, because 'cause you're right. I mean, it was a project that a lot of people put their hearts and souls into, and then it just never went anywhere for a very long time.
Yeah, indeed.
Mhm.
All right, other news. This one I definitely know came out of Comic-Con, and that is, during the publishing panel, we got the announcement of a new novel coming out in April of 2027 by Beth Revis, who previously wrote Rebel Rising and The Princess and the Scoundrel, which we've reviewed on this podcast. We both really enjoyed. And this one is called Twin Crossroads. And this book takes place right after Princess and the Scoundrel, and it talks about Luke training Leia in the ways of the Jedi. And some of the other tidbits that were sprinkled in this release that they did with Beth Revis are that there's going to be scenes of them infiltrating an Imperial stronghold on Coruscant, them struggling with the legacies of their parents, how Leia gets her first kyber crystal, and Luke using the star compass that he acquired in Battlefront 2, and which apparently appeared in the Battle of Jakku comic series that Marvel released. So those are some of the highlights of this announcement. I'm eager for this one, Jay. What are you feeling about it?
Oh, yeah, I'm very eager for this one, and Beth Revis, as you mentioned with The Princess and the Scoundrel, one of the things that she showed us is that she understands Leia
Mhm.
exceptionally well. And so I think that she did a great job of balancing Leia's heroism with her vulnerability. And so this really gives me a lot of confidence that she'll handle the relationship between Luke and Leia in this book very carefully, which I think is very important. So as far as like the kyber crystal is concerned, this is so cool because obviously we've seen the lightsaber, but we don't know the origin story kind of thing. And so this is seeing how Leia constructed her Jedi identity, which is
Mhm.
super cool. With Coruscant, we haven't really gotten a whole lot of Imperial Coruscant if you think about it. I mean, if you look at the remains have been kind of largely underexplored in that particular time frame. And then as far as the legacy goes, I think that for Luke and Leia, they're dealing with two different forms of legacy in a way. For Luke, he's more interested in the redemption end of things, and Leia is inheriting a lot of the political consequences of
Mhm.
what happened, as we see, later on too. So, it's kind of interesting. Do they ever escape that legacy? Probably not, because as we know going forward, there's other things that go along with that. But I think the Star Compass is super cool because obviously Lucasfilm is showing in this particular book even that they are giving um basically what am I looking for? Credibility to reward fans who consume stories over different forms of media. And so seeing that in there is just I think is just super cool. So those
Mhm.
are my overall thoughts. What do you think?
No, I'm very excited for this book. I was looking up at my bookshelves here because I was trying to figure out how much of the current canon adult novels, and this is going to be adult book. Beth Revis has previously written the other two books for young adult. Well, I guess maybe not so much Princess and Scoundrel, but that one kind of straddles the line. It's not a super long book, but this is an adult novel. We don't get a lot of those that feature the big three from the original trilogy, Luke, Leia, and Han. And so that's exciting. I think Heir to the Jedi was the only other adult book. No, that's not true. The Legends of Luke Skywalker, or whatever it was, that came out around the same time as The Last Jedi, is the other one. But that's like really it, as far as I can think of, as far as books go, adult books for Star Wars that feature Luke. Leia's gotten a little bit better treatment, and Han about the same. I know he showed up in a couple of the Aftermath books, but they've largely been the domain of the Marvel comics since the canon got reset. So getting an adult novel featuring some of our original trilogy characters is pretty cool. And so I'm looking forward to that. I really love the idea of finding out how Leia gets her kyber crystal, because, Luke, we still don't know entirely how he got his for his green lightsaber. He originally started with his
Right.
father's lightsaber. So, but finding out Leia got hers, seeing a mission to Coruscant, yeah, all those things that you were just talking about, that's intriguing. And so I'm glad that Lucasfilm is shifting their focus and allowing that stuff to be told. And as much as I enjoy the Star Wars comics, they really saturated that era from A New Hope through Return of the Jedi and didn't really leave a lot of room for novels
Mhm.
featuring the trilogy. But now there's some space after Return of the Jedi to tell stories about our original trilogy heroes that they can now start to do. And I hope they continue to do comics, but I also hope that they continue to leave space to fill some of that with some novels for us to read, because I love both mediums, but I can't listen to an audiobook of a comic. It just doesn't
Right.
exist. And so when I'm walking a
Exactly.
dog and I want to enjoy some Star Wars content, it's nice to have an audiobook, and it would be good to have more Luke, Leia, and Han stories.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you say that because obviously there was a lot of other things that came out of the publishing panel and that we're going to be talking about here in just a second.
Mhm.
But really quickly, not to like belabor the point, but one of the things that really struck me about all this news is this particular con. Obviously, there's not a blockbuster that we're looking forward
Mhm.
to as we will when we hit Celebration next year. And of course, we're going to be all on the Starfighter hype and that kind of thing. But it just feels like there's a lot of world building that is
Mhm.
coming out of a lot of these pieces of media that we're getting, and it's almost very reminiscent of the like Legends slash EU days, like, ooh, what's coming next? And we're getting these audiobooks and we're getting these novels, and I'm with you. Yeah, the comics are great, but I mean the novels are just a really great shift into that, and the audiobooks, as we're going to talk about too, and the video
Yeah.
games too. So
The
yeah,
great thing
there's
about
all of
comics
it.
is, right, we get to see how things look in comics as opposed to just making our best guess based off the description there. And like I said, I want both pieces of art, but I'm just thinking back to Legends was a very good call on your part. The New Jedi Order, the all the stuff that came out about Star Wars and all the different things that they came up with then. And it was primarily novels, and it was supplemented with some comics and things like that. But it's just been so long since we've had that sustained storytelling with these
Yeah,
characters. So this is
so
cool.
true. Mhm.
Okay. So that was not the only publishing news, as you were just saying. There's a couple other things. We're not going to go over all of it. Some of it is not as fresh. It's kind of updates on things we already knew about. But first up, the original trilogy novelizations are all getting unabridged audiobooks to be narrated by Mark Thompson, and they arrive on February 2nd, 2027. This is part of the big 50th anniversary of Star Wars publishing initiative here. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure I read the novelizations for all three of the original. I know I've done for Return of the Jedi, but how about you? Have you
Mhm.
read all of those, or do you
Oh, yeah.
remember? Or yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And as a matter of fact, the original Star Wars book novel,
Mhm.
I still have that paperback, and I think I've told you that story that I had gotten it out of my public library when I was in grade school, and I had renewed it so many times that and it was very well loved by that point because it was a paperback. So my parents wanted to just buy it from the library. And, they were just like, wow, we're going to get a new copy of it anyway. So she might as well just go ahead and keep it. So they let me keep it. I still have it. And that's
That's
what I
awesome.
actually use to type out with my typewriter, listening on cassette tape as I cassette recorded it off of HBO, the movie, and typed out the entire script and then used the novel to cross-reference like how to spell everything.
That's
And then
cool.
later on, I got all of them from the science fiction book club. And
Mm-hmm.
so I got all of the editions then from that as well. So that's like, wow, I didn't expect to go down that little memory lane kind of thing. But I have to say, this seems like it's very overdue. And I thought that there was audiobooks out there. I've never listened to them, but I was like, didn't they already exist? Or is it just because they're unabridged and they're Mark Thompson?
There's that, and maybe you're thinking about the radio dramas that they did
Maybe.
for those 3 books.
Yeah, perhaps.
I mean, I never actually considered whether it was audiobooks abridged or unabridged before
Hmm.
I heard this, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to get these, and not like I have to make a decision today, so I maybe I wait till February to do so on that. But it's just I've absorbed this content so many different ways, from the movies to the comics. I know at some point in my past I had the comic adaptations for all these things,
Hmm.
to different novelization versions. There was the middle grade versions that came out years ago that I read, and then there was been other, from a certain point of view, type of that. All these different books that told the story of the original trilogy, and so I'm trying to decide. I suspect I will get these and listen to them at some point just to relive the book that way. But I'm just already thinking about how many times am I going to see A New Hope next year? It's
Right.
it's going to be in theaters. We're probably going to see it
Uh-huh.
at Celebration, and so it, I hate to say that I would have fatigue for it, but there does come times when I'll put a certain movie aside and watch the other ones in its place because I've seen it too many times recently.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, no, I
um,
get that.
I'm thinking of the conversation we had with Dan Zare for the last Force Awakens segment that we did, where he considers it like Thanksgiving dinner as opposed to this always ongoing buffet, which is apropos. I can watch them more frequently than he can, I think, and enjoy it and stuff. But that's not to say that, like, I'm thinking back to the days when it's like been on TNT, and like all of a sudden you turn on TV and always, TNT is always showing these
Oh,
movies
yeah.
over a course for a month, and you're like, yeah, I love them, but I love other franchises too. So time to move on to something else. But
Yep. Yep.
okay, well, let's move on. I really have no idea what this is, and I need to find another source to give us more detail. But StarWars.com basically teased us with a book called Star Wars: A Celebration that's going to be published from DK Publishing. And the brief little look that they gave us about it makes it seem like it's going to be a series of essays about people in and around Star Wars. But anyway, it made their list. So, what, if anything, did you take away about that one?
Yeah, not a whole lot. And when I looked at this particular cover, I thought to myself, okay, is this just like one of those cover not final sorts of things? Because it is, I mean, it's very plain, but does it need to be anything else? It's got the iconic Star Wars logo, and then I love the fact that it's called A Celebration because,
Mm-hmm.
of course, every convention is called before, the number is celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, hey, this is pretty cool. But do we know how many pages it is? Because it doesn't
Yeah.
look like a very big book. That's what I'm
Yeah,
just wondering.
I
Yeah, there's
I
not a whole
think
lot on
yeah.
it.
I mean, I just went off of the release on StarWars.com, so I didn't have time to really delve into it too much. So we'll have to find out. The next one I am a bit more excited for, and this is Star Wars Icons: Darth Vader by Anthony Breznican. And I've not actually I have met Anthony. Met him at Star Celebration Anaheim last time briefly. He's friends with Dan Zare, and so I got to say hi to him. But I have the Star Wars Icons Han Solo book that Gina McIntyre wrote, and I have not read that whole thing from cover to cover, but it is a in-depth look at that character. And so getting something that is a hefty book that's devoted to Darth Vader, the character, inspirations, and all that. That's intriguing. I'm looking forward to that
Mhm.
one.
Mhm. Me too. And of course, I always love the behind the scenes and kind of stuff. I have, and I need to go down to my basement and dig some of this stuff out, but I have this thing called the vault, and it's the Vader vault. And it actually, if my memory serves me correct, because I haven't looked at it in years, but it has, it's almost like a shadow frame, and it has actual things in it in addition to just the book. So this is, very similar to that, but it's not, obviously it's not like it doesn't have the actual artifacts and stuff in there. But I didn't realize that there were other ones. So you said you have the Han Solo one, and
Mhm.
obviously this is the Vader one. So it makes me wonder, are they going to come out with things like a Leia book and a Luke Skywalker book? I'm assuming
Maybe they
probably
will.
yes, at
I
some point.
don't. I think the Han Solo one and this Vader one are the only ones that are out there, and the Han Solo one came out like I want to say around the time of Solo: A Star Wars Story. So that tells
Okay.
you how frequently they do these things. But um,
Mhm.
anyway, so we'll have to keep an eye on that one and get more details as it comes around.
Mhm.
Up next from the publishing panel, there was the announcement of a new graphic novel adaptation of Star Wars: A New Hope, and it's called Star Wars: A New Hope Triple Take. It's coming from Mad Cave Studio, and it's basically going to retell A New Hope from the different perspectives of Luke, Leia, and Han. And this is another one that I'm going to have to wait till closer. I'm not sure when it's coming out. They didn't list a publication date for it, but I'm going to have to wait till closer to publication to decide if I'm going to pick this up or not.
Mhm.
The teaser images that they gave, I wasn't a big fan of the drawing style that they put on
Mhm.
there. And but what is intriguing is the getting the story from the three independent perspectives. So that's the draw for me. I want to see how many pages this is, what it's ultimately going to look like closer to time. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Mhm. I mean, basically, I would echo exactly what you say too. I'm sitting here looking at the image, and it's a very interesting concept, and it's a
Mhm.
different way to present the story, obviously. And, the first thing I think of is from a certain point of view novels, because that's kind of where it sounds like maybe these stories are coming from. But yeah, I mean, it's intriguing, and I might give it a shot, but it's definitely not my top tier of things that I'm looking forward to. But I
Mhm.
would like to just get, and I know we did get a little bit in a certain point of view, but to get R2D2's perspective of things, because I think that would be cool, of the entire movie.
Yeah. 24 pages of beep, 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 beep,
Yeah.
beep, 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 beep.
Translated by our friend C3PO.
Right, right. And then the last thing, it's not really an announcement, but they shared some teaser pages from the High Republic Adventures. That's an ongoing series been written by George Mann that takes place after the High Republic series. And I think they shared images from issue 4. And I kind of forgot that they were doing those things because they've been so quiet about it. I mean, when
Yeah.
the High Republic was at its height, we were getting update. I mean, prior to the Actors Guild strike, they even had a show dedicated to it on StarWars.com. Now they don't have any shows on StarWars.com, but regularly updating what was coming in all this. And so they've been quiet about that. And I have to admit that I didn't keep up with all of the High Republic comics that came out of Dark Horse, those High Republic Adventures comics.
There's a
We
lot.
discussed, yeah, we discussed all of the ones that came out through Marvel that Kevin Scott wrote
Mhm.
and loved those. And I liked George Mann's books that he wrote for the High Republic. So perhaps I should go back and give this a shot. But it's just kind of a reminder that's there, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's nice to see George Mann, getting something else with the High Republic, because he really did a great job with all of the media that we got from him,
Mhm.
I feel like. So it's just nice to see Lucasfilm continuing that confidence in him.
Indeed, indeed. Okay. Well, a few other stories we've got. Up first, we got a little bit more detail, a few more details, I should say, about the Star Wars: The Experience Museum exhibit that's going to be opening at the Franklin Museum on February 13th, 2027. And then after it's run there, it will go on a tour of North America that's supposed to last about 5 years. There were some renderings and key art shared with attendees. One of the exhibits, I thought of you, Jay, was the Queen Amidala's throne room that has a replica of her dress behind, I guess, her desk or her throne in it. Yeah, before we go on, I'll give you a chance to talk about that one because I was like,
Oh,
oh,
heck yeah.
Jay's going to love this.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. That would definitely be, I would spend a lot of time in there. And what great photo ops. I
Yeah.
mean, hello. And it's awesome because it's great to see the prequels getting that love, which they should. But I mean, so great.
Right. And then the next part of the exhibit that they teased was Wireframe Worlds, which really talks about the various ships and other props that from their design phase perspective. And the centerpiece exhibit that they were talking about is a wireframe TIE fighter that, it looks like they have room set up is the feeling I'm getting from what they revealed. But of course I wasn't at the panel. And so intriguing. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, I think this one would be, I would spend a lot of time in this room, quite
Mhm.
honestly, because for me, seeing the original models and the production design just reminds us, as fans, how much artistry goes into Star Wars. And a lot of that is lost art. And so I just think that would be fascinating.
The next part of the exhibit, I am really eager to see how this goes. It's the carbon freeze capture, where you get to stand in the steps of Han Solo and experience what it was like to be frozen in carbonite. Not literally, but I get from the description that you basically put yourself on the platform and then you hit a button and the Ugnaught triggers the carbon freezing experience and yeah, but such an iconic moment from The Empire Strikes Back, and now you quote unquote get to relive that. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about an interactive exhibit type thing. I'm very interested to see how they're going to pull that off, but yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to be frozen in carbonite, I guess? Maybe, possibly.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
love their description. You'll love it. We know. It
yeah,
is
because I'm
awesome.
trying to think where it was. If it was at Disney World during the old Star Wars weekends or whatever, where you could get like the little model of yourself frozen in carbonite and stuff like that. And when I first started reading this, I thought that's what they were going for, but it's not that at
Mhm.
all. It's that was you get scanned and then you get turned into a character frozen in carbonite. This is you're standing on the platform and it's like you're about to be dipped into the machine and frozen in carbonite. So yeah,
Yeah.
really curious about that one.
Yeah.
And then they promise this epic conclusion and an experience called The Force That Connects Us, which is going to be RIFD powered. So, think of the magic bands if you go to Disney or RFD devices that will sense you and things that you're doing in the exhibit. But the gist of it is that you're getting to quote unquote use the Force in this room. And like as you wander around the exhibit and experience things that shapes your story and reveal some sort of a conclusion at the end. But they're being ambiguous about it. And I think that's for a reason. They don't want to give away what
Mhm.
it is. Um,
Mhm.
I'll just say this, there's one more room to talk about here. And we'll get to that in just a second. But all this really makes me wish I had a reason to go to Philadelphia because I'm not going there just for this museum exhibit, as cool as
Sure.
it sounds.
Mhm.
But, when you throw on, $300, $400 worth of round trip airfare tickets plus a hotel for the night, and your tickets for this, that's expensive just to go to
Mhm.
a museum for a day.
It is. It is. This particular experience sounds really cool though. If it works, because of course, technology is always great when it works, but it's almost like a role-playing expedition that like
Right.
it says your journey becomes uniquely personal, which that's intriguing.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if they can deliver on that part though.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the
So,
technology, it's great when it works.
right. And then the last thing that they promoted in this story was the 50 years of Star Wars, which will be an exhibit that is going to display over 100 iconic Star Wars toys from over the 50 years of Star Wars. And they will also have 30 prototypes, so think of the old Kenner toys that are there.
Mhm.
This is really cool. I can't help but think of Rancho Obi-Wan when I heard this and the various exhibits that they've had at Celebration over the years. It just sounds like they're going to have more floor space to bring us more and exhibit it there when we go see this
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm. Well, this is exciting because I feel like there's a lot. I mean, so many people connect with the toys, and we both do as well. And just the idea that these toys really shaped a lot of our childhood and the way that
Mhm.
we looked at Star Wars, which I think is super cool. And I really hope that like Jim Swearingen is there at least for the opening of this, and maybe is able to get there here and there. And he was the one that, as many of our fans probably already know, and I'm not telling you anything you don't, but he was one of the original designers for all the Kenner toys. And he
Mhm.
was the one that really nailed down the 3 3/4 scale. And so that is huge. So I'd be really interested to see what kind of toys they actually have. It says including 30 rare prototypes. So, but yeah, when you say Rancho Obi-Wan, that was what came to my mind as well.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Star Wars toy from back in the day?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have my original Princess Leia action figure
Mhm.
from like the original set that I actually got signed by Jim Swearingen at one of
That's
the
awesome.
the cons. So it's like on the inside, like if you lift up her plastic cape, he did it on the inside of the cape for me. So I actually have to find a way. She's sitting right over here, but I have to find a way to like display her properly because I'm not quite sure how I need to do that. One of those boxes, acrylic boxes, I guess. But do you?
I don't have any of my toys from growing up, and that's a story for another time. But I will never forget the Christmas after The Empire Strikes Back came out, and Santa left the AT-AT for me under the tree,
Aw,
and
love that.
I loved that thing. I did buy a couple of years ago off of eBay the AT-AT Pilot action figure. That is one of my, I don't know what it was about the look of the AT-AT Pilot, but it always just appealed to me, and so that was one of my favorite action figures. And so I don't know, it made me think to look for one on eBay, and I found one for a fairly inexpensive price and purchased it. But yeah, that was
Nice.
the Ed Dad. That was always one of my favorites. I like
Yeah,
the Millennium Falcon. My problem with it is that that was fragile. It's just so hard to keep together.
yeah.
Because it had that back panel you'd take off so you could move the characters around inside the cockpit. It had that flip open cockpit, and that part would always get lost. And so it was just hard to keep that thing together. And so there is a pizza place that I go to, and they have a lot of it's called Fifth Street, and it promotes St. Louis style pizzas. They have a lot of St. Louis stuff, which appeals to me since I'm from there. But they also have like a wall of like all these records from the 80s. And then they just have various other nostalgic items from the 80s. And there's one support pillar in the middle of the restaurant, and they've got a bunch of Star Wars things around it, including the Darth Vader action figure case and the Millennium Falcon that is missing
Awesome.
like one or two. I can't remember. I think it's got the cockpit, but maybe not that back panel. One of the two is missing on it and stuff like that. But they have a few other
Mhm.
things. I think there's an X-wing there as well. And so I always, when I'm waiting for my pizza, when I go pick up pizza from there, I always enjoy looking at those things. So I get my
Nice. Yeah, I
little
still have
nostalgia
my
hit.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You always gotta get those nostalgia hits, that's for
Mhm.
sure. I still have my Falcon. I know it's missing parts. It definitely is. But I think I told you the story too. That was how I learned to play chess, was we took all of my action figures,
Mhm.
and my brother-in-law actually figured out like who is the king and who is the queen and all of the things. And then my Jabba would just sit by the edge of the chess table, just like watching the whole
Yeah.
thing unfold. So yeah, I have a picture of that. I thought I had shared that with you one other time, but I'll have to find it. I know I have it scanned.
Yeah.
That's
I
fun.
loved that Java figure that came out at the same time Return of the Jedi, and that little DS he
Hmm.
came on, he came
I
with,
don't have the DS anymore,
oh,
but I
yeah.
do have him.
Yeah, but Salacious Crumb came with him, but that was, like, the centerpiece of so much play after Return of the Jedi came out for me, just setting up the characters there, because I also had the Rancor. That was another one of my favorites that I'm mentioning it. Just, having Jabba send people off to fight the Rancor constantly, and that was, yeah, man, talk about a trip down memory lane. I haven't thought about a lot of those toys for a while, but
Oh my gosh, yeah,
those are some
that's
good ones.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. Well, yeah. So that was fun. I had not
Yeah.
really thought about the trip down memory lane that we would get into with discussion of the toys, but I hope for both our sakes, it ends up someplace nearby, and we know what the schedule for this exhibit is going to be sooner rather than later, so that, shoot, if it was down here in Dallas, you could come down and see it
I would
here, or
love
if
that.
it was in the Cleveland area or something, I could come up and visit you and we could go see it.
Mhm.
But we'll have to see, make those plans when we get there. But well, then, thank you all for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust and this discussion of the Star Wars news that came out of San Diego Comic-Con. We hope you've enjoyed it, and if so, make sure you've subscribed to Podcast Stardust on your podcatcher choice so that you can get our weekly breakdown of news as it happens throughout the year. We also appreciate your ratings, reviews, likes, subscribes, follows, whatever it is that your podcatcher does. That really helps us get in front of other people. If you want to find more of the back catalog of Podcast Stardust, head over to retrozap.com. That's going to have all previous 1,064 episodes of the show, which most podcatchers are only going to give you the last 200. If they're very generous, maybe 3. So anyway, you can find everything over there, as well as all the other great shows that are on the RetroZap Podcast Network. Jay, why don't you remind everybody one more time what our social media outlets are and where else we can be found online?
Absolutely. My pleasure as always, Dennis. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And you can always hit up our Pinterest boards for all kinds of fun ideas for everything Star Wars. And while you're at it, you can listen to us on YouTube and YouTube Music as well. So we don't have any video, just audio, but you can definitely listen to all of our episodes as well as interact with any kinds of comments or questions. Subscribe, share it out to your friends. We sure would appreciate it. And if you have anything you would like to send us in an email, we do have that podcaststardust@gmail.com address where you can do that as well. And then if you would like to purchase some Podcast Stardust merch, you can hit up the link in our show notes, and that'll take you right to our TeePublic store. And you can pick from one of 7 different show logo designs on all kinds of fun stuff. So head over there and pick something up.
All right. Upcoming on the show on Monday, we'll be getting into the Clone Wars, and we'll then be taking a break from Clone Wars over the next few weeks as we get into the 9th Jedi series. It's coming out here in just a bit. And then on Wednesday, we are getting back into Darth Bane. We're not covering new chapters, but we're having a kind of a midpoint discussion because we got halfway through the book, and we've got a special guest who is reading this for the first time that has been talking to us. And so we decided to bring her on the show and get some of her opinions about Bane from a newbie's perspective. So make sure you check that out. We've already recorded that episode, and it was a lot of fun. But with that said, thanks for listening to episode 1065 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great weekend. And until next time, may the Force be